Hello, welcome to another EagleSix Airsoft video. We're going to be testing this Token Marie AA12, doing function test, and this one has had, so it just came in for not working. The gentleman said he had to turn it upside down to shoot, and in order to make it fire, while I think that's quite trend-setting, obviously it's not ideal, is it? So obviously we replaced the Tappet plate spring, which was broken. We checked through our set, the documents on the previous builds and stuff, and I couldn't find anything that said we'd done that before. It'd be interesting to know, obviously, if it was a R spring, if you know what I mean, that's broken on it, or if it's the original TM, because we know the original TM ones break, but we obviously haven't had a breakage yet on R ones. So it'd be interesting if it is R1, if you know what I mean. Obviously, it's almost impossible to make a part that's invulnerable to breaking, but it'd be interesting to see if it's is possibly that one, and therefore, you know, becomes a potential sort of regular breakage thing. Obviously we don't know why they break, because obviously we're not there when these things happen. Obviously they're quite thin pieces of metal, so yeah, maybe it's just a sort of regular thing that's sort of periodically going to be needed on this, in which case, you know, either it gets built into servicing packages, or you know, you just sort of have to periodically get it changed, you know, if it ever goes, which is an inconvenience, but you know, such is life. So obviously that's been replaced. Obviously, as with any AA12 and any of the shotgun guns, they tend to vibrate a lot, and they have a lot of screws on them, and therefore a lot of either loose screws or missing screws. So I think there's about 5 screws that we've replaced over it that were just completely missing. So they've been replaced, and then obviously we've tightened up other ones. There's a couple of points that we need to make with regards to this one. It's interesting that the gearbox on this particular model is cracked all the way across like that. However, functionally, it doesn't actually change a thing. So we've opted to leave it in there, because, you know, it's just a cosmetic crack at the moment. It's actually not affecting it functionally in any way. However, it's worth noting, just for, you know, because it, you know, covers us in terms of that. Or if you're talking about sort of MOTs, you know, it's like a yellow warning, you know, on there, that maybe at some point that could possibly get worse. But obviously, you know, whole gearboxes are quite hard to come by. In this particular instance, like I say, if it's not affecting FPS, which is still, you know, 272 on I think it's 2.8s, I think, that were in there. You know, it's you know, going fine. You know, we're currently what, 342 1.2, so you know, it's well up there. It's not affecting, because it's obviously in front of the cylinder set, and the cylinder set's obviously you know, its own separate thing. So yeah, so it should be fine. I can't remember what else we noted that were on there that was worth mentioning. Just the loose screws. Obviously there's bits missing on here. What we're going to do here is, next time I get some in, I might just take just try and do knock up a quick 3D model or something like that, you know, of it, and then just get some printed out. You know, once they've got a little bit of a silver paint on there, they should be very similar to the original ones. That might sort a few people out that have these missing. Until then, we obviously just replaced a couple of screws just to hold those in on the side there. Oh yeah, there was another breakage at the front. Where was that? So technically that bit there, which I don't know if you can see, that shouldn't actually have any lines across it. That should actually be one solid piece. So technically, I suppose if you were to wiggle this, it might have a tiny bit of play, but again, nothing affecting the actual use of the gun. So, because obviously we're going to demonstrate it working. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's got some wear and tear on it. There's no two ways about that. But like I say, we're trying to, you know, keep costs down to a minimum, if you know what I mean, by not just replacing parts willingly if they don't, you know, aren't needing it for sure, and thus keeping costs down, because obviously, you know, the gearbox shells are going to be quite expensive. You know, obviously that part there is going to be expensive, so obviously we're yeah, might as well just think. But I suppose it's ultimately your choice. If you obviously want them changed, you know, we can do, I guess. So, but otherwise I'd up for a 100 quid lower bill, you know. So but yeah, so yeah, we're just going to demonstrate it working. mags, don't they? And an Odin speed loader, please, somebody. There we go, all tested. We did note that the battery was left in the gun when it was sent in. Obviously, we don't recommend leaving batteries in guns. Hate to be sort of dad type thing on it, if you know what I mean, but technically with any battery device, electrical device, there is a natural drain with circuit boards. So obviously if you naturally drain a Lipo, now luckily it took a charge back in there, but it is worth noting that it's ever so slightly puffed. So on the particular battery, I've recharged it up fine and I've used it, but again it's worth noting, if you know what I mean, that technically it's got a little bit of squidge now, if you know what I mean, on that. So like I say, it's doing it, but if you're at all worried, if you know what I mean, then like I say, for the cost of what Lipos are, just replace it. But otherwise, like I say, it is technically working fine. Yeah, so it's all charged. So yeah, we hope you enjoy. Like I say, all repaired, but yeah, this one I did myself actually. So yeah, so there you go. So enjoy. So thank you.